This fella Ronaldo is a cod.
Aston Wenger's been in Japan for a year. They don't know anything about English football.
I will love it if we beat them.
This is football heritage.
Con Giovanni, incredible. Dribble, 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 dribble.
If you don't know the answer to that question, then I think you are an ostrich.
The season hasn't even finished everywhere yet, and the silly season of the summer transfer window has already begun. Which transfer rumour have you enjoyed the most?
They're all pretty miserable transfer rumours, you must say, because there's no. It's like, oh, poor Gareth. It's Gareth Bale and players who want to get away from clubs at long last, who have suffered or who feel like they've been mistreated, like Robin Lewandowski at Bayern Munich, who's been wanting to leave for years, and it turns out he may not ever leave.
He's stuck there forever.
Yeah, so it's like, this is what happens because you left Dortmund. But Robin and Ribery, like, they're going to go somewhere as well. That whole Bayern is going to become this hotbed of transfer business all summer long, whether it's people looking to offload players like Man City are looking to offload Leroy Sané to Bayern Munich, or where it's, where are these Bayern players going to go next? Like David Alba's want away apparently. There's always talk about
Boateng almost left last summer.
Yeah, there's talk about Joshua Kimmich maybe leaving and going to challenge himself somewhere else in the likes of Toni Kroos. Speaking of Toni Kroos is basically surplus to requirements at Real Madrid.
Did you not see the news about Toni Kroos today?
What's the news about Toni Kroos?
He just signed a new contract.
That's protecting Real Madrid's investment.
He's not leaving this summer though.
Yeah, maybe because they have to maybe move on or maybe reintegrate new midfielders.
I don't recall many times a player signed a new contract during the summer transfer window and then left in that same transfer window. Unless it was
Callum Chambers, Arsenal signed a new
unless season. It was to move up. I mean, yeah, that was what I was
well, no,
say.
last season he signed a
on loan.
Signed a new contract, and then he was brought back in the summer, signed another new contract, and then was sent out on loan.
On loan is different as well. But I'm interested because I haven't seen a single word written about James Rodriguez.
What? Yeah, is he just in limbo at the moment? Like, there was rumours at Christmas that Chelsea and Arsenal were interested in just bringing him in there till the end of the season. Neither materialised. He didn't play that terribly for all the. Remember, there was a lot of bluster about how he's had a terrible season. Like when he played against Liverpool in the Champions League, he wasn't that.
He wasn't their issue.
No, yeah, he wasn't the worst culprit in that crime. Like, it was basically Robin Lewandowski carrying the team from midfield, even though he's meant to be playing centre forward. And yeah, that
Bayern have had a weird season. They've still managed to win the
league 7 in a row. Like, and Kovac is still in power.
Just see, he got dunked over the head with a huge.
Who was it? Robin? Robin.
I suppose he's on the way out some as well.
Was it Tom? Was it Ribery or was it Robin?
I'm pretty sure it was Robin.
Well, I don't think Kovac and the Robin robbery is. I finally realised that's what they're called. He wasn't as badly on with them as say other managers in the past.
Yeah, I think he got on with them fine.
Like
Heinkes. But I think the more
didn't get on with them last season.
I think more the issue is that the players didn't really respect Kovac more than
I
they
still
didn't
think
get
they
on.
don't do that. He's won the league, and I still don't think they respect him at all.
Well, that's why they're going to get rid of half of these players.
Yeah, like there's a circa 2008 kind of change happening, or maybe it was even 2007 when they appointed Jurgen Klinsmann instead of Jurgen Klopp, and in the end, that's worked out pretty well for Bayern Munich.
Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, and Jurgen Klopp. They won the Champions League. They've won 7 consecutive Bundesliga.
They finally won a treble.
Yeah, they fair play to Bayern Munich and their decision-making processes somehow that they've come at the end of it and kind of been okay. So their next season, the way Germany is so fractious that Bayern are going to. This was a big transition season for Bayern, and it was no one Dortmund were ahead for a while, but even with the mess that was the season for Bayern Munich, nobody could overturn them.
Yeah, that's a kind of a worrying prospect there in Germany. That's just never ending for them now.
Because you can't Dortmund have signed someone this week.
They've been linked heavily with Thorgan Hazard.
Yeah, and I think he's almost confirmed himself that he's going to Dortmund.
He said himself that he wants to go. It's just a matter of
the transfer window opening in June.
And Dortmund and Mönchengladbach still have to agree on an actual fee, I think.
But he's coming in, but Pulisic's gone out among whoever else will go out before the end of the summer because Dortmund's always open shop.
Well, it doesn't seem like Jadon Sancho is going to move after all. After we discussed that a few weeks ago,
I still like the room. Like David Ornstein has spread his wings and has moved away from Arsenal and is now speaking to other clubs. And he gave his transfer, his oracle, the oracle. Was it the Ornstein or? There is various rooms. The Oracle, that's what it is.
Oracle, okay.
David Ornstein, who's a very prominent BBC journalist. Who has the inside track, has had it for years on Arsenal, so much so that he is sometimes even they have the Reddit tiering, and he's above the official Arsenal website for information, because sometimes he gets the information long before.
I saw that him and Simon Stone, another BBC journalist, were doing a thing on Man United recently on radio.
Yeah,
he said the two of them said that Sancho to United is not going to happen.
Yeah. But he did say that was Sancho doesn't want to go there due to the instability and
which is fair enough.
lack of European football or lack of Champions League football.
That is a sign of maturity in my eyes.
Yeah, well, this is the Jadon Sancho. Like, who knows what he's like as a character really? Because all we know is the
couple interviews here and there.
Yeah, where he's come across very well. But of course, they've been very expertly managed by his people and Dortmund itself. But this is a guy that moved away from Man City when he was given I think he was offered the highest contract ever offered to a person of his age, and turned it down because he wasn't going to be Pep Guardiola, who wanted to keep him at Man City, couldn't guarantee him first team football.
And that was like, I respect him a lot for that decision, because a lot of youngsters hadn't been doing that up until he kind of set that trend.
Yeah, but even then, like, he'd probably been proven right, because he wouldn't have got, even with the quality that he has shown in the Champions League and in the Bundesliga for Dortmund, like, if that was Gabriel Jesus, who's only a few years older, he's only like 3 or 4 years older.
I think he's only 22 now.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Like, again, a player who actually showed a lot before he even joined Man City when he was in Brazil. Was he playing in Brazil?
Yeah, he was playing in Brazil.
And he still gets he is most definitely the second choice. He started the FA Cup final, he scored a goal, but he is most usually... He
only played the FA Cup final, I think, because he's been there cup.
Almost. It's almost like, you played the cup goalkeeper, you played Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, they should have brought back David James.
Just for the FA Cup final. Poor David James never won an FA Cup.
Was he not at Portsmouth?
Oh, he did, eventually.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, but he lost for Villa and for Liverpool.
And he would have lost to Portsmouth again in 2010.
Oh, poor David James.
I assume he was there. He must have been there in 2008.
Yeah.
But yeah, the transfer window is going to be a long summer.
Yeah, there's a lot, and we haven't even come close to the rest of the Premier League. Like, Man City are going to do business this year.
Yeah, they've been linked with a few players here and there.
There's a funny thing that keeps coming up. It's like Chelsea keep getting linked with Chelsea are really interested in this player. It's like, there's a transfer ban in place.
Especially Coutinho, they're being linked heavily with.
But there's this random player. Chelsea are interested in what's the name of that midfielder, Atletico Madrid?
Which Koke?
No,
Rodri?
the other one. No, the other one.
Partey?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're linked with him, and it's like, but there's a transfer ban in place.
I saw him linked with Man United today as well.
He's been linked with every. Yeah. I think every Atletico player, because they know Atletico are in a position currently where every player is for sale, because not that Simeone's filling anybody's mind, any Atletico fans, like, with confidence, that he's saying, we're replacing Griezmann. He said that we need someone can cover three quarters of the pitch. 3/4 of the pitch. Scores 20 goals a season and is very cheap.
Yeah. But to be fair, if you look at
their whole squad,
strikers though that they've had over the years, you'd actually trust them to maybe replace Griezmann.
They're looking at your man at Benfica, is it? The young fella,
João Felix.
Is that who they're looking at?
He's going to cost a lot of money, because I think Benfica won his release clause for him.
Yeah, but they might get it. Like
I think Atletico will be able to get that money just through sales alone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like they might make that investment, because they've shown that before, that they're willing to make it. Like, they did it with Costa, bringing him home. They've
Morata even.
Yeah, Morata as well.
Even the
Morata experiment, I'm not sure has worked out very well.
What's his name?
Although they finished second.
Jackson Martinez. They spent a lot of money on him, even though he didn't work out.
And then they made a load of money selling them to China.
Yeah. But it was quite funny last week. It was just Antoine Griezmann was like, "Yeah, I want to leave Atletico Madrid." And it was like, okay. And then,
it was preempted. Did you hear? Like, it was posted first by Atletico on an official statement was posted to Twitter.
Yeah, because he was threatening to make another documentary about himself.
So they wanted to, like, no more documentaries.
Yeah, we're sick of your nonsense. But, like, the obvious thought was, he's up to Barcelona now. But then Barcelona have been kind of like, okay, we don't really need him necessarily.
Ibar 2-all.
So,
like, they They do. They need somebody. They need to change the way they are. Like Torres has done actually after a very slow start, or not a very slow start, but after like everyone expecting Torres to kind of crash and burn this season as a top class centre forward playing for Barcelona, he kind of pulled himself up by his britches and kind of made the status quo. He scored more than 20 goals this season for Barcelona, which is commendable. But Messi carried the team majorly, and a lot of cracks, as we said earlier. Remember, what was it? The very early in the season, we saw Piqué. Oh, that's Piqué's career ending. We're just watching it in slow motion. Who's that against?
Could be any random.
Oh, do you remember? But it was a very specific match. It's like, oh, that's Piqué over. Like he's just been done for pace on the turn.
Yeah,
his positioning.
Celta Vigo, I think.
Whoever it was just like, oh, that's.
Or Girona.
It was maybe it was one of those teams, but yeah, Barcelona is another thing because, like, speaking of players or teams who've given contracts and then sold the player afterwards, like Valverde got a contract. Is now absolute. If he wasn't, he kind of was tolerated by the fans, but he must be on thin ice with them. Even though I don't think the board has any notion of sacking him, but because he's just won 2 doubles or likely to win 2 doubles. But Valverde is
he's dead man walking necessary.
Yeah.
Not yet, but he's there. He's very close to it.
There's so much change potentially happening in the summer, and it's going to be, like you said, it's a long summer. It is going to be a majorly long summer. There's no tournament on, despite your Nations League obsession.
Copa America.
Copa. But like Copa America's lost so much value because they've gone. Like if they're every couple of years.
Yeah, they're doing another one next summer.
Yeah, like stop doing that.
Did you see who they've invited to this year's one?
New Zealand,
Japan, and Qatar.
Oh, Qatar, because
why not?
Yeah.
Asian Cup champions.
Yeah, they're Asian Cup champions. They did very well. They seem to have done an immense amount of work, and Xavi's there, and whatever else happens, it happens, and there's a lot of money swirling around.
But we talked about a lot of change happening. A lot of change is definitely going to be happening at Juventus, as Max Allegri announced.
Is there a lot of change going to happen at Juventus?
Well, they have an aging squad.
Yeah, but every year Allegri refreshed it.
Well, he's not there to do that now.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, Conte kind of kept his team together for 3 years.
Yeah, because he always said that famous quote: "If you can't go in a $100 restaurant with $10 and expect a good meal or whatever it was."
Yeah, but then Allegri made that work.
Yeah,
and got to 2 Champions League finals, which
he got a fine steak out of $10.
Yeah, he did, and he kept rejuvenating the squad and mixing and matching. Of course, they're not like it's not like they're a pauper trying to eat at a fancy restaurant. They are still Juventus, the old lady of Italian football. They have more money than anyone else in Italy. They bought Higuain for however many,
and then tossed him aside to spend even more money on Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo, and not that either of those worked in the long run. They won the league, but that was kind of the
I think this has been Allegri's worst season at Juventus, which again speaks to the standard that he's had over the last 5 years. This is the first year he's not won the double there.
Yeah,
only got to a quarter-final of the Champions League, which was seen as a bad thing for them. Like, because they got, was it a semi-final?
Semi last year, Real Madrid. Remember
was that not? That might have been a quarter-final.
No, that was a semi.
Because didn't they played Bayern Munich after that?
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, Benzema.
But like, is it huge?
Benzema.
Sven Ulreich.
Yes, of course.
But it's
title winner.
It's very different to lose to Ronaldo one year and then have Ronaldo and lose to Ajax the next.
Yeah, it doesn't look as good, but like for anyone who actually watched on paper it doesn't look as good, but then if you look at it, it's like this Ajax team was way better than last year's Real Madrid team.
It turns out, yeah.
And they only got to the semi-finals and got knocked out by an inferior side. So what does that say about Ajax and Juventus? Who knows? Maybe Huddersfield are the best team in Europe.
Maybe, although I don't think they beat Tottenham this season, did they?
No, they beat Wolves, who beat Tottenham and Liverpool. They beat Tottenham and Liverpool.
And they beat also Arsenal and Chelsea. So Wolves are actually the kings of Europe.
No, but Huddersfield beat Wolves.
Twice, actually, yeah.
Exactly. So Huddersfield, over 2 legs, are the best
checkmate
team. Yeah, exactly. It's like the old Fairs Cup.
So who do you actually see replacing
That's the thing. I was like, have we had any inclinations this year? Like, I often get the feeling that Pavel Nedved will eventually come down from the kind of director's box where he's been a kind of footballing consultant, because he isn't necessarily director of football, because that's
Paratici.
And the other guy that everyone's after.
Well, he's gone. He's at Inter Milan now.
Yeah, but what was the name of the other guy that used to do all the deals? Like, but Nedved's there as well. What's he doing there? Is he going to come down and actually coach the side a la Zidane? And then away from that, like, Juventus tend to be actually shrewd enough with this. Like, they always have been. And a lot of the Italian clubs there, like, they give managers a chance. They go down the divisions. Like, Arrigo Sacchi, Maurizio Sarri, these non-footballing men getting huge opportunities at massive clubs and doing well with them. So maybe they will go down. Like there's been a few at the Atlanta coach who's at this year again.
I'm not sure who is the coach at the moment. They have done very well.
The other, what's the name of your man that's always offside? Pippo Inzaghi, his brother.
Yeah, Simone
Inzaghi, the better manager. Of
yeah,
the two
Pippo's proven to be terrible
Lazio,
manager.
You know, there's a lot of options in the Italian league that they could just promote. Like Zenix Semen's still alive, give him the job.
Well, it seems like
just for the crack because he hates Juventus.
Fabrizio Romano has reported today that Antonio Conte is going to get the Inter Milan job. Which I
don't want to see Conte back at. Give it Spalletti. See if Spalletti.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. What if they gave it to Spalletti?
But no, I don't think they will. I think they'll either go because they tend to. When's the last time a foreign manager? Has there ever been a foreign manager at Juventus?
There must have been at some point.
I can't think of one that's.
Who was in before Conte? Was it Ranieri?
Was it Ranieri?
I think it was. It was around that time, Ranieri.
I don't think there's ever been a foreign manager I could be completely wrong. But Lippi, Ancelotti. Before Lippi, it was Trapattoni. Then you had... Who was Juventus? Capello. Who was Juventus manager between Ancelotti and Capello?
Surely in the 90s.
No, because it was Lippi.
Was it Lippi for all that time?
Yeah, because he won the league and he won the Champions League and he got to the other finals.
Yeah, that would be interesting. What foreign manager would they even bring in, you know?
Well, Pep apparently was... Or not Pep. Pep has distanced himself from the job. But
apparently they put feelers out for Jurgen Klopp, which I think I mentioned last week as well. But again, that doesn't feel like a good fit either.
Yeah, but again, if they've never had a foreign manager...
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I
never
not
even
since
thought of
ancient times. They probably had an English manager back in the day or something. I'm looking now.
But
they had Hungarians. They had
in
flags.
the 50s, was it?
Yeah, pre-war. They had a Uruguayan. They had Billy Chalmers in 1948, Scottish man.
But since the 80s, like when was the last one?
Time? Oh, Didier Deschamps was manager for a season.
Was he?
Yeah. So he was that was after relegation.
Oh yeah, well that makes sense that they would bring one in at that point.
And then Ciro Ferrara, Alberto Zaccheroni was there. Luigi Del Neri, they were both before. Del Neri was.
It was then Ranieri, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Ranieri, and then 3 more managers, and then Conte.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Because 2 seasons between Ranieri and Conte.
Oh, I thought Conte replaced him.
You're going back a fairly long way. Like Lippi was 1994-2001. He's by far the longest serving.
Just bring in Del Piero, frankly.
That's not Del Piero has no experience at that level. Like, and generally they won't appoint someone. Milan have done it.
Gattuso, yeah.
Gattuso
had a bit of experience.
Seedorf and
Inzaghi,
like a little bit of experience. They were coaching youth sides, and Seedorf was over in Brazil.
And Seedorf did an okay job at the time.
Yeah, but not to the level that you wanted it. Maybe they'll go with the Anderlecht route and appoint a player manager.
Yeah, Vincent Kompany and getting a 3-year contract.
Give it to Chiellini.
Yeah, sure. Barzali just announced his retirement as well. Just bring in Barzali.
Yeah, that could happen. Like there's no doubt that these guys have footballing brains. They proved it. And Italy is that kind of weird place where they give chances to ex-players very quickly, even at the highest level, like we said with Ancelotti and stuff. So it's not outside the realms of possibility. But at this point, oh God, no! I think Mourinho's burned those bridges.
I think he has, yeah. Especially what happened earlier in the season.
Even if he didn't have the last 10 years since he left Italy, I think a Juventus appointment would be out of the. They're above Mourinho. No offense to Mourinho. Well, offense to Mourinho. That they're above him at this point in time. They don't need that. They're a dominant force. They need someone to take them to the next level. And I don't think Mourinho's that in this age. I don't even think Pep Guardiola would do it because it's. Like Pep Guardiola's, they're already dominant. They already have this style.
It would be a huge waste, and I'd be really disappointed if Pep just went off to Juventus.
I don't think he will. I think he's staying for the foreseeable future, or at least for the next season at Man City. I think it's probably going to be internal. Think of what managers are available. You have Mauricio Pochettino, who could work at Juventus. You don't see his methods not working because they are used to hard work, and that is something Pochettino demands. And he is someone for rejuvenation, which is what they need. And of course, Juventus don't have a bad youth setup. There's no one saying that. They have the flex in the market to make a few signings and at least to bring them up to maybe Pochettino's standards of youth and vigor. So he isn't outside the realm possibility. Depending on what he decides to do in the summer, he decides to stay in Spurs or stay in England or go abroad and see what happens. But outside of that, there's no big name manager available. It's more interesting to see what Allegri does next. Will he take the time off and take
Yeah,
a
that is
sabbatical?
interesting. Yeah,
Does he go to like a Bayern Munich and try and do the Pep Guardiola thing of proving himself in different countries? Because he has had this imposter syndrome cast upon him. I don't think he's ever shown it himself, but you got the Milan job because you're friends with Berlusconi. Oh, you only won the league because Inter collapsed and nobody else was. Juventus weren't up to standard, and so they couldn't catch you. You only got the Juventus job because there's no one else available and you were last minute. Oh, you only won the league because you were Juventus. Everything he does, people question because he is at these big clubs, at these big opportunities. But Milan haven't won a league since or come even close to it.
they haven't even been in the Champions League, really.
Yeah, and like Juventus, they do have enough good players there to probably like Ronaldo with the young lads that Allegri's given a good start to this season, which says in goals. They have a spine. They still have the old like Chiellini and Bonucci are still hanging on there. Maybe there'll be a change a system to bring in other players that conventional four at the back maybe could come back as the standard for Juventus rather than this hybrid 3 to 4 that they play sometimes. So like there is scope there, but I don't know whether a manager will do as well as Allegri next season. Maybe the Serie A title race will be a lot closer.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping from this. Maybe Carlo will come up have a better season with Napoli.
Maybe Carlo will go to Juventus because it is unfinished business for him. Like not that he was never a Juventus stalwart or anything. Like he got the job because of his good job at Parma, wasn't it?
Was he manager of Juventus?
Yeah, in 2001.
Was he?
Yeah.
I thought he just did
No.
Milan.
No, he was manager in the 90s. That's how he got the Juventus job, and that's how he then got the Milan job. I don't think he would go to Juventus after the bad blood of the Champions League and the league titles.
No, but I just mean between Carlo and with Conte, like maybe they'll give a good fight for.
Yeah, you'd hope there'd be something there. Apparently, there's more money flowing through Italy next year. Napoli, I worry about that they're getting older and they haven't replaced the right players, and Carlo hasn't really. He's never shown his ability to kind of play the transfer market or bring through a lot of youth. Really, he's kind of very good at working with the players with the tools he's given, and that's his focus. So you'd worry a bit with that with Napoli. At the other side of Conte, like maybe he can get they're a very talented bunch, and maybe this will be like his first season at Chelsea. It's like they're malfunctioning last season under Spalletti or this season under Spalletti, and maybe he can pull them together to be, the sum of their parts basically, because they haven't been thus far. And maybe he will get rid of the kind of the way he did with Costa, get rid of the kind of distraction that is
Mauro Icardi.
Yeah, very talented, excellent captain, goal scorer, everything like that. But it's an absolute soap opera with him there at the moment in any club he joins. And I say that likely he will join some other club and ruin that club as well.
Yeah, maybe Juve.
Yeah.
Inside job. But then we mentioned Gareth Bale there earlier as well, and he was an unused substitute in Real Madrid's final game of the season. Just rocked straight down the tunnel at the final whistle at the Bernabeu, and I think he hugged Quique Setien, and that was it. Who's leaving Real Betis for some reason or other, I don't know. And I thought he'd done a fine enough job that he just keep on. Yeah, I think
they've signed well, and the players they've signed have actually performed well for them.
I think he's just left of his own volition. I certainly don't think he's been sacked or anything, but it was a bit of a weird one.
Juventus job coming.
Yeah, maybe. But Gareth Bale remains to be seen where he can even go from Real Madrid.
Well, the rumours he's going to be given a free transfer that they'll pay off a proportion of his contract.
But who's going to pay his wages?
Manchester United are stupid enough, not because Gareth Bale is a very good player. But Manchester United, it sounds like a Manchester United thing all over the shop. He could go back to Spurs if he's willing to
take a huge pay cut.
Well, maybe Spurs can afford him if they move a few things around.
He's on like $600,000 a week.
Yeah, that is pretty rough.
And he's contracted till 2022, 2023.
He's got 3 years left.
So that's a mess right there.
Like China.
Yeah, China.
Juventus, they offload Ronaldo and bring in Bale.
That would just be quite funny.
Yeah, Bale and Ramsey. It could work.
Yeah, weird. Weird coming
Ramsey,
together.
No manager.
Yeah, no manager. Yeah, maybe he'll bring Unai Emery with him. So it is weird with Gareth Bale. Like, he seems content to just pick up the paycheck and play a bit of golf as well, which doesn't sound like a bad life.
We say that, but this is the guy that effectively won 2 Champions League trophies himself.
Yeah, no, he's been. This is
scored
the thing.
in another one.
He's so underappreciated at Real Madrid. Like, he
scored the best goal ever in the Copa del Rey final.
Yeah, scored the goal to win the only Copa del Rey they've won since he's been there. He scored one of the great Champions League goals in the final against Liverpool. Scored
the winning goal.
Yeah, it was the winning goal.
Scored another crazy goal in that Champions League final as well. Scored in the penalty shootout.
The Atletico Madrid first meeting as well.
Scored the winning goal
winner
in that. Yeah, like Di Maria made it, but Bale scored it. He had to be there to score it. Gave that photograph. Like, contrast that to Ronaldo, who did very little in those matches. And tried to pick up all the acclaim for himself. Like you say, Ronaldo goes around saying, "Oh, I've won 5 Champions Leagues, isn't it? He's won 4 at Madrid and 1 at United." Goes around and Bale doesn't brag that he's won 4 Champions Leagues. He's done a lot more to win those. No, maybe not a lot more for all
in the finals.
In the finals, Ronaldo obviously carried Real Madrid probably 2 of those 4 finals
at least. Yeah,
along the group stages and along the knockout stages, he was the difference in a lot of those matches. But Bale doesn't go around
just goes around playing golf.
Yeah, he's very unassuming. I think maybe I don't think the pressure's really got to Bale. Really, he
scored over 100 goals for Real Madrid.
It's just it seems like a bit of wasted potential. Even though we can say he's won 4 Champions Leagues, a league title.
He's had a weird career.
He carried Wales to the European Championship semi-finals. He's had as a Welsh international, as a Welsh player. He's had one of the best careers of any Welsh player ever. John Charles himself, Ryan Giggs, they'd be the only...
And even then, Ryan Giggs never did anything for Wales. Barely played for them.
Exactly. It's only... John Charles would be the only one who would... from the Juventus player from the 40s and 50s. He would be the only player that would be close to him.
And most people who watch football will not have remembered him.
No, except
would not have
you're
seen
a Juventus
him.
fan.
Yeah.
Del Piero is the greatest player he's ever heard of. Or seen footage of.
Yeah, what I mean is most people that watch Wales now probably didn't see John Charles.
True.
So for most people, Gareth Bale is the best and will be the best for a long time that Wales have ever seen. Which is why he's had such a weird career, because he's not loved by anyone really. Even the
Welsh like him.
Besides the Welsh, the Tottenham fans.
Do they not like him?
I don't know. I get the feeling that.
Do you remember that losing
Harry
streak
Kane
when they
now.
never won a game when he played?
That was quite funny.
Yeah, that was
when he was playing left back.
Southampton he helped to nearly bring up to the Premier League at one stage before being sold to Spurs.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I hope he ends up somewhere and he can actually play, because he's quite enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it'd be unfortunate this is the way it ended, but you're looking at
he's still young enough, really.
Paris Saint-Germain could easily take him up, especially if Kylian Mbappe has made it very clear that he wants to leave Paris Saint-Germain.
That was
picking
mad,
up the Ligue 1 Player of the Year and saying, I want to challenge maybe at Paris Saint-Germain, maybe somewhere else. I don't know. And maybe there could be a swap in place for Bale going one way, because Bale fits the profile of Paris Saint-Germain in that he's an aging titan.
Yeah, in the way that he fits the profile of Manchester United.
Yeah, well, it even fits better in France because it's less physical.
He dominated in France.
Yeah, it reminds you of Zlatan when he went to France. It was kind of,
it's just
this is going to be easy street. That's why Cavani hasn't left.
Not quite as easy as MLS, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Bale could go to MLS.
I don't think they could afford him. I don't think anybody in MLS could even break every club because they all have a strict wage structure.
And then finally, the Champions League Championship playoff final. The Champions League playoff final happened a few weeks ago. The Championship playoff final will take place next Monday between Aston Villa and Derby.
Disappointed in the end that Leeds
United just completely collapsing.
Hopefully Bielsa will hang around. Bielsa's Juventus.
Bielsa has apparently given his word to the board that he will stay with Leeds for another season.
Yeah, well, in fairness to Leeds, and Bielsa, I don't think anyone's ever given him less. I know the Spygate and the whole hassle around that, and the scrutiny of the media and the scrutiny of certain fan bases and of different kind of this foreigner coming over doing this thing in our league, that kind of attitude that was given to him.
They welcomed him with open arms.
But Leeds the club have, but everyone else has kind of been like that with him. But at the same time, none of that's as bad as any of the kind of stuff he's had to deal with at any of the other clubs. He had a lot of politics to deal with when he was in Athletic Bilbao. He had, Marseille being crazy and the ownership changing and a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. He went to Lazio and... How long was he at Lazio? 6 days or even that?
Oh, it was not even 6 days, I don't think.
Yeah, he resigned because they reneged on all their promises. He
was miserable at Lille as well.
Yeah, Lille, and he was he's broken or something. He said that about football when he left him in the relegation zone or just above the relegation zone.
There was pictures of him watching a match in McDonald's trying to analyse it. It just seemed like a low point for Bielsa.
But at Leeds, he seems, it's a nice part of the country up there. It's a thriving city, unlike most other cities in northern England. And they're mad for their football, and it is the job. Hull is nearby, but not really. Like,
Hull's more of a rugby town as well.
yeah, Leeds is the only game in town, and they love him. Like he's become a very what's the word, underdog type of story that everyone is against him. You know, that type of
especially after Spygate.
siege mentality. Yeah, and they've all developed it, and they haven't got super hostile yet. I'm sure they will get there, where they're like just horrible to everybody who ever questions them. But for the moment, it's going well. And if I was Bielsa, it's like, well, if I'm happy here, and they're happy to have me. This season we didn't do, we ran out of steam, as Bielsa teams are known to do.
And Leeds are not.
Well, I think this is more, Bielsa did a lot with this Leeds team. Like, this Leeds team started, like, the squad they had was barely good enough to stay in the Championship at the very beginning of the season. In terms of, it had good quality in there, but they had a lot of players who had not shown that they were good enough at a lot of different clubs, and they're kind of ended up at Leeds. There was a lot of old players and there was a lot of young players, and he's kind of galvanised them all together to play this excellent brand of football that was, as some said during the season, the finest team ever to play in the second division of English football.
They're definitely much better than the sum of their parts.
Oh yeah, and as you combine that with the signings that Bielsa, by being Bielsa, has managed to put through, like Kiko Casilla from Real Madrid.
It ended up being their undoing, really.
Yeah, but like that can happen. But like, if you can get a couple of more signings of that magnitude, you'd be like Wolves last season when Wolves got, like, kind of had a Premier League squad in the Championship, and they just dominated everybody. And like, if he gets a few more through and he keeps the kind of style of football, they'll easily dominate the Championship next season. And you have to, like, Leeds were kind of undone in the end by, like, they were undone by forces beyond them. Like, they kind of fell apart there, and the whole Spygate thing did have an effect on the team. But they were even suffering before that happened. They were losing games that they shouldn't have been losing, and then they were almost resigned to the fact that they were going to hit the playoffs early on in it, and they just like, okay, we're going to stay in this position, and it could have even been better if they dropped to 4th or to 5th, because they would have got a better draw in the playoffs, because they're playing Derby County, who, Villa do have that parachute money still from the Premier League, and they spent a lot of it now in the last 2 years to kind of rebuild their squad after that dismal relegation season in the Premier League. So they have a very strong squad, but other than them, Derby have a lot of Premier League players on loan, a lot of players that have been purchased, the idea of them being in the Premier League. So they do have the level of player that they had man for man was probably greater than Leeds, and that probably showed in the end. The experience of the players on the field kind of told that these players didn't know. They're a bit below that cut that was the Premier League, while a lot of the Derby players have Premier League experience, have been there before, have done it before, or are a really young, raw talent that will be Premier League standards very soon.
Yeah, and like, obviously Derby still have to go on and play Aston Villa now. Like, but the thing is with
Derby are going right back down as well, by the way. If they
that's the thing.
No
that
offense
feels
to Derby
like
fans, but I just feel like even if they hold on to Frank Lampard, and even if they hold on to some of the players that have done well this year, like, I keep wanting to say
Harry Wilson has been the revelation.
Harry Potter. That's what I keep saying, Harry Potter. But Harry Wilson, like, obviously Michael back to Liverpool, and other players are there, and a lot of players, like, are they Premier League standards, for the whole season? They are on their day, but will they be able, like, it feels very much a kind of the Huddersfield, more
Derby
so than
2007.
Well, not that bad, but I feel like it's more towards that team that was like Huddersfield last season when they stayed up, were skinning their teeth staying up. A few good performances against Manchester United, a few good. That was an interesting performance, but they were very much this is a Championship side, like skirting the bottom of just the edge of the barrel to stay up.
But they were able to do that because of David Wagner and the philosophy that he brought through that I just don't think Frank Lampard has with Derby.
Yeah, there's a bit of, we don't know yet, and it's early to make judgment, but I feel there might, like, I worry that there might be a bit of the Roy Keane about Frank Lampard, or even Stephen Gerrard, although he's not been tested down. And like Scotland, yet.
Obviously with Roy Keane, he won the Championship with Sunderland, but he crashed and burned pretty quickly.
He did, and
after
it was like
that.
all the players that he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do when something went wrong. And in the Championship, there was enough to, these guys know Roy Keane. He's just after retiring. He was inspirational. He told them how to do it. This is how you did it at Manchester United. He had a lot of contact still in the game, so he could get players like Danny Higginbottom, his old teammate at Man United. He could get signed the likes of him. He could bring up young players who were talented, like Grant Ledbetter and players like that. Or try and get the best out of players who were misperforming by motivating them. But as soon as that got to the Premier League, the going got tough. The players talked back to him, which he could not deal with. And you'd worry about Frank Lampard. Will all of this bravado eventually wear off? Because it can only bring you so far. When things are going well, it's fine. You can say what you want, but I don't get the feeling that he's created like a massive aura around himself that you can insulate himself like what Mourinho does when you play that game of kind of making yourselves against the world and you being the only righteous thing in the world and everyone else being wrong, which is what Lampard's tried to create at Derby. You need a tough skin for when that starts going wrong, a la Mourinho. And we've seen in recent years how Mourinho is kind of that tough exoskeleton starting to wear thin and he's starting to lash out and not work well. If you don't have that at all, which I'm not sure Frank Lampard does, he's too much of a nice guy maybe to have it, you worry about him surviving when things are getting a bit tough. Then again, he might go to Chelsea.
Yeah, maybe. But then with Aston Villa, like they have that history. They do have JT.
A lot more experience, a lot more championship experience. Their manager's
They got to the playoff final last year as well with pretty much the same squad.
Yeah,
they lost to a good Fulham team in the end.
Aston Villa traditionally have a decent youth setup. They brought through a lot of those youth players, but they've also spent on Premier League standard players, and they've kind of the last, like Glenn Whelan, for instance, is like. You didn't think he had it in him to kind of carry that. A
great resurgence of Glenn Whelan.
Yeah, but it's kind of maybe that's his level. It always has been his level to be a very good championship player or a poor Premier League player, and like maybe it'd be good for him to go to another championship team next year.
But the thing is, you could imagine that Aston Villa could replace Glenn Whelan.
Yeah,
if they went up. Whereas if it was Derby,
Villa are Derby are a decently sized club, but Villa are a massive club.
They're one of the founding members of the English Football League.
They've a pretty much state-of-the-art stadium. I don't know how Villa Park has aged in the last 10 years, but it's a pretty nice stadium, pretty good capacity. They're in the second biggest city in the UK.
They were always in the Premier League until they went down under Remy Gard.
Like,
is that harsh on Remy Gard?
No, they went down the 80s as well after they won the
European but they were always in the Premier League.
Yeah, the Premier League. But like they're European Cup winning side. Like there's not many teams that are a European Cup winning side. They have like
they're one of the most historic sides in England.
Yeah,
they've won 7 division league.
They've been unfortunate with their
titles.
takeovers. Like easily they could have secured one of the
billionaires.
Yeah, like really they could have. You know, because they are a big like it's a bigger city than Manchester, Birmingham, and like though there is like Wolves, which granted isn't in Birmingham, but in the area. But there's Birmingham City, there's Walsall, there's West Brom, there's Wolves. They're all in the vicinity, but Villa are the biggest club, and they should be in the Premier League, and they should be, you know, up there with like the Leicester. It's not to say like Leicester were in the Championship only a few years ago as well, but they should be up there. That West Ham bracket below the top 6.
Like
they should easily be there.
Besides the fact that Leicester, Leicester actually won the league title, it feels like Aston Villa or Leicester replaced Aston Villa.
Almost, yeah. It's kind of like, and that was the way it used to be as well. They used to be up trading places all the time.
And of course, both managed by Martin O'Neill back in the day.
Oh yeah, good times.
So we need a Martin O'Neill derby in the Premier League next season. Is what I'm trying to say.
Someday Notts Forest will get back in the Premier League. I don't remember. Like I honestly don't remember. I think it was like 99 maybe.
I think they went up in 99 and went down again in 2000.
I don't know if they were even. I don't think they were in the Premier League in 2000. I think it was about 90. It was either 98 or 99.
Yeah, it was around that time period they went down. All right.
Yeah, like it's been a long time without Nottingham Forest double European Cup winners.
Like you say what you will about winning one European Cup, only 2 other clubs have won multiple European Cups in England.
Oh yeah, it's only United and Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and Nottingham Forest won 2 before Man United won 2. So they should be in the Premier League when you think about it.
They should have won 3 to be honest, but that's another story.
It was Anderlecht that they got screwed over against.
Was it Anderlecht? It was someone weird. It was someone like referee monies were exchanged, and
there is a weird history with Anderlecht.
It was an Italian team. I always feel it's an Italian because Juventus did Derby, I think, back earlier.
You can always associate corruption with Italian teams.
Yeah. Well, it's just it definitely happened when Clough was at Derby that they got done by Italian refereeing.
I didn't know this.
In the semi-final, I think, or the.
I can't remember now. I wasn't alive.
It was like 1974, so I don't really expect you to remember, but come on, man.
So anyway, Aston Villa Derby. Well, something to look forward to next week.
I would say my favourites will be Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And I'd say Aston Villa would stay in the Premier League. And who were the other 2 teams that got promoted?
Norwich and Sheffield United.
Yeah, I would say Aston Villa have a better chance of staying in the Premier League next season than Norwich or Sheffield United. But I would also say that who were also like Sheffield United, hugely historic club, ancient club, and like one of the oldest clubs in the world.
The second oldest, I think, in English football. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Notts County, I think, are below are the oldest, and then them. But yeah, you know, I still think they'll go down next season, and I feel Norwich will probably go down. They both have played very well this year and have shown that they have a different edge to them, but they're not of the Wolves standard of last season.
I'm so happy, believe me. I'm so happy. Happy New Year.
The FA Cup, once the showpiece event of English football, has been reduced to little more than an afterthought. But this year's final was more than just an afterthought for all the wrong reasons. It was harrowing, depressing, and it was yet another stage for Manchester City's money-spending exercise to showcase that nothing can compete with its power. Have Man City ruined football?
Have you, just on your first point, do you ever remember the FA Cup being important in your lifetime? Because I don't think it was ever important, really.
I think I held it at more importance than perhaps most people did. I always enjoyed watching the FA Cup when I was younger.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed watching it, but honestly, the FA Cup was as important as winning the league.
But when I say the FA Cup once the showpiece of English football, I do mean when it was the 70s.
No, true, but even in the 90s, it was almost as important. Certainly in the 80s.
When Man United won the double in 94, that was a big deal.
Yeah, and when,
it saved Ferguson's job as well, remember?
Yeah, earlier on in Crystal Palace. But even going as, Chelsea playing Aston Villa in 2000 was a massive occasion. And everyone would be watching it. And even, I'm thinking it may be...
Then they killed Wembley and they killed the FA Cup.
Well, they often say it was Man United.
Yeah, Man United in 2000, yeah.
But even before then, the run of Newcastle finals just getting beaten by whoever won the league, against Arsenal and Manchester United, or the Man United beating Liverpool in 96. Maybe from then, probably from the 90s it started dying until the first one I remember that no one really cared about was the 2003 FA Cup final.
Between Man United and Arsenal?
No, it was Arsenal against Southampton. No one really cares.
It says a lot because I didn't know.
It's like when things moved to the Millennium Stadium. You had one. Oh, this is weird because that's main stadium. You had Arsenal against Liverpool. Liverpool were going for whatever quadruple of domestic trophies or Community Shield.
The formidables. What Man City have done.
Yeah, exactly. But they added the UEFA Cup to it as well. And they won it, in the last minute, and they kind of added a bit of, they came down, pure Manchester United style, 1-0 down in stoppage time, and they won 2-1 in stoppage time.
But I think the 2005 FA Cup final even was a big event at the time.
Yeah.
It helped that match was a really good match between West Ham and Liverpool. Or was it?
That was 2006. 2005 was a horrible final between Man United and Arsenal, where both teams were missing
a bunch of penalties.
Yeah, Dennis Bergkamp played as a lone striker in that match. 35-year-old Dennis Bergkamp. It went to penalties and it was awful, and I think
2004's was miserable as well, really. Manchester United just rolled over Millwall.
Yeah, Millwall. See, that's when it started getting a bit weird, and I think it was reminiscent of earlier. But I'm getting really sidetracked by this. Yeah.
To answer the other question, how Man City ruined football?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about this, and there was a lot of. I think I spoke to you about it before. That there's a person I follow who's a journalist for Empire Magazine, who's a Liverpool fan, and he was talking as a Liverpool fan more than anything that why people being, and I didn't really see the value in his, because I don't really think that there's been a lot of animosity towards Liverpool. Sure, there's the old hatred from older people from the 80s and 70s when Liverpool used to win everything, similar to the way people don't like Man United now because they remember when they're younger in the 90s and 2000s, Man United just won everything, and kind of that familiarity of victory kind of breeds hatred. Other than that, I'm saying Manchester United fans, direct rivals, Everton fans, I don't think there was a great deal of animosity towards Liverpool at all. I don't think anyone cursed them for winning the league, but his point was that people were cursing Liverpool for winning, for coming close to winning the league, for competing against this Man City side. People wanted them to lose every week and stuff like that, when the alternative was this Man City side fueled by this kind of, what's been called in soccer washing, or what's it, sports washing.
Sports washing.
Sports washing's been called in recent times of, and it's an investment fund. It's not necessarily the state itself, but it's an investment fund run owned by the state, or funded by the state, which control Manchester City, and it's a way of boosting the United Arab Emirates' standing in the world, and that's what they're using for. And it's been a long held way of improving yourself, improving your noticeability or your kind of recognition in the world by hijacking something else that people are interested in and putting your stamp on it. And that's what Emirates have done with the Etihad Arena, with the the sponsor Fly Etihad, or Choose Etihad, as it said on the FA Cup jersey, for which maybe that's a rebranding they're trying to get.
Well, the Emirates sponsors the FA Cup. It's the Emirates FA Cup now. Yeah,
but the Etihad Airways sponsor the Man City's shirts and pay for the stadium sponsorship as well, and all that sort of things. And it's like that is it's the new normal is a team that can get 100 or 98 points without, that can buy out the rivals, and everyone just accepts it, and no one really, and can just have, as we said, what was it, John Stones came on Kevin De Bruyne and
Leroy
Sané
Sané
came on, and like any team, they would probably be like
they'd walk into Watford's team.
But they'd walk into any like Liverpool's team. Each one of those players would probably get into the Liverpool team,
and they were just sitting on the bench for an hour.
Yeah, and no, it didn't affect them one bit. Riyad Mahrez, the PFA and Football Writers Association Player of the Year 3 years ago.
Yeah,
like
their record signing.
Record signing. Like scored a goal last week, didn't he?
Against Brighton.
Was taken off and looked sad, and nobody cared. He's completely what's the word? He's completely disposable to them. Ilkay Gundogan scored a fantastic goal last week against Brighton as well. Was taken off. Again, would walk into most teams in the world.
He's been linked with Liverpool.
That is a different side of players, and isn't a kind of Hollywood player. Is more of a continuity player. But like, no one really cares that he's gone off. The Man City fans don't cherish these players the way they would in the past.
We mentioned the fact that Leroy Sané could go to Bayern Munich, and that would not be a loss to Man City. In fact, that would just be kind of now they can actually bring in someone new.
Yeah, it's an interesting notion that since the takeover in 2007, they have not lost a player that they wouldn't want to lose. No player has left. Like, you can make an argument maybe about Carlos Tevez, but at the same time, he probably was a higher caliber of player.
Well, he'd ran his course at Man City as well.
Even at Man United, he hadn't attained his level that he was at Man United, but he went to Juventus, obviously did well at Juventus.
Like, he fell out with Mancini hard. But
you can't. There's no other player that that was working for Man City that they lost against their will. In the way
that like Real Madrid are likely going to buy Eden Hazard.
Whenever Real Madrid or Barcelona or in the past one of the Italian sides would take a fancy to one of your players, you're probably going to, one way or the other, in the long term, you were going to lose that player. And that was just it. Arsenal lost countless players over the years: Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Cesc Fabregas, Robin van Persie into English club. But the Arsenal were expecting to lose those players. Liverpool, Michael Owen they lost. Steven Gerrard, they're always on the cusp of losing. Luis Suarez and Coutinho most recently going to Barcelona.
Alonso Mascherano.
Yeah, they're always like, there's a bigger fish to go to. Like Manchester United even lost David Beckham back in the day, and Cristiano Ronaldo laterally after that to both Real Madrid. And it was like, that's Man United accepted that 80 million or whatever they got world record fee at the time. They accepted it. At Man City they wouldn't. Like, they was like, okay, you can just sit there and not play.
Yeah, we'll be fine without you.
Yeah, we don't need the money. We don't need you. You'll get worse. And the Man City players go, okay. And maybe that keeps a certain caliber player away from Man City. Maybe that's why we don't have like the likes of Kylian Mbappe, like the real top tier of world football. The Ronaldo and Messi are special cases, but the likes of a Robin Ribery in the past, of
a Neymar,
a Mbappe, and a Griezmann go on to Man City because they're like, I don't know about these guys.
I don't want to be stuck here.
Yeah. And I don't want to, I'm not sure about everything associated with it. And maybe that's negatively impacting Man City. But when you're like, to bring it back to a full circle around it, maybe it is killing football. Because you're like, what is, like, I've often thought about this, like, what makes you a football fan? Or a fan of a particular team? Like, generally, historically speaking, it was geographic proximity. If you were from, like, the main road area of Manchester, you were a Man City fan. If you're from Trafford or Salford in Manchester, you were a Man United fan. If you were from East End London, you would be a West Ham fan. If you were from like Greater Birmingham area, you'd probably be a Villa fan. If you're from Birmingham City, you'd probably be a Birmingham City fan. If you're from Newcastle, you'd be Newcastle. If you're from Sunderland, if you were from different sides of the River Plate, you'd either be a River fan or a Boca Juniors fan. If you're from different sides of Milan, you'd either be a Milan fan or Inter fan. If you were different political divides, perhaps you'd be a Lazio fan or a Roma fan. Everywhere, this is what happened. That's why you became a fan of a club. But now it's, why do you support, like, why the game is global now. The game is international. It does, like, how many English players played for Man City at the weekend? Not that many. How many players from Manchester played for Man City at the weekend? Even less. I don't think. Did any?
I don't think
I can't think of anyone.
Even their youth products aren't from Manchester.
Yeah, like Zinchenko isn't really Manchester.
He's playing for the Ukraine national team.
Yeah, but he qualifies as a homegrown player, I think. But like, yeah, they're all international. It's like, what makes it support a club? And is it okay? Is it a kind of a feeling you had when you were younger? Is it because you watched them win and you associate that feeling with good? And that's why we have a lot of people support Leeds or Newcastle or Villa who won stuff in the past, or who support Manchester United or historically supported Liverpool or Arsenal or Chelsea as a more recent phenomenon. But why do you support Man City? It's because they win, because they play a certain type of football. But what Man City just are sterile, dominant. I never really cared about them, really, until I started thinking about this. I don't really care if Man City win, but it's that apathy that has let kind of this thing creep in, where everyone's okay with the way Man City have done things.
That was the point of the sports washing. Everything was just okay. It's all, I don't really hate Man City because they're inoffensive, but their inoffensiveness is what leads to you actually thinking about them more as they become more inoffensive. Yeah. And then you realize, wait a minute, no, they're killing the game here. They're strangling our joy out of this.
They're not alone. I'm not attacking for Man City fans out there. I'm not attacking Man City alone. Or anything like it. I'm not really even attacking
it was the same thing with Chelsea.
Chelsea did it. Blackburn did it. Man United have been guilty of it in the past. Liverpool used to buy the best players when they had the power in the 80s. It's okay, who's the best player for one of the opposition players? We'll buy them, and that's it.
The difference has always been, though, that there is a distinction between Chelsea and Man City, and then the likes of Liverpool and Man United.
It's just volumes. It's volumes. That's what's happened. Is that Man City have, what was it? Chelsea spent the most amount of money between 2004 and 2015 in that 10 season spell, or 11 season spell, but only fractionally more than Man City. And Man City had only been taken over 5 years previously or 6 years previously. And Man City have dwarfed everybody. They're 50% ahead of the second best spending side,
which I think was Real Madrid,
and
then Man United are third.
Or is it PSG?
I think it's one of the Spanish clubs, and then Man United,
and then Man United, and then probably PSG. And you're wow, they spent a lot of money, and there's nothing necessarily wrong. They have the money to spend, and they're a big club in their own right. But
they're under investigation now. For
it's
this
it's artificial, and then you have it's not an easy situation to come to, because you have different schools of thought. Should you be against teams artificially inflating their position in world football? Should we be against people butting in and breaking up the monopoly that was, the G14 in the olden days, the best and richest clubs in Europe doing whatever they wanted and everyone else having to toe their line? Is there something wrong with someone breaking into that order and shaking things up? If you think there is something wrong with it, if you think there isn't something wrong with it, then there's nothing wrong with it with the likes of Paris Saint-Germain and Man City.
But Man City aren't breaking into it, they're just becoming a part of it. They're not destroying anything.
No, they're not changing anything in the long run. In fact, they're just
joining the club.
Yeah. But are you against, from their point of view, they're well, we're just joining the club. Why don't we have a right to be in here as much as anybody else? But then you have the flip side of it, which is, this is entirely artificial.
It's financial doping. That's what Arsene Wenger
used to call it. And Arsene Wenger didn't have a problem with investment into clubs. He didn't mind even the likes of Leeds going into debt or anything like that, because they were, they're going into debt, they're going to pay this back. But with Man City, with Chelsea a bit, Chelsea kind of reformed their ways that they got on, because the money was turned off to a certain extent and they had to make it themselves,
and they complied with regulations that came in.
And
not all of them,
transfer bans as a result. But then you go to Paris Saint-Germain, or you go to Man City, and you're looking at, or RB Leipzig to a lesser extent, and you're looking at clubs who were spending way beyond their means. They never will be able to, if they had to do this by natural methods, the way Manchester United paid money, the way Liverpool paid money, the way Arsenal pay money, the way Spurs pay money, they wouldn't be able to ever pay the wages of the players they have. They wouldn't be able to pay the transfer fees the players they have. They wouldn't be able to pay the agents' fees of the players they have. They wouldn't be able to pay for Pep Guardiola. They wouldn't be able to pay for the tours they go on. No, they wouldn't be able to pay for the youth setup that's an envy of most teams in Europe now, and their ability to kind of just not let players play for the senior team and just offload them and sell them on for nothing. It is entirely artificial, and it doesn't. In the short term, you're kind of okay, you can live with it. But if that becomes the new norm and they just win by default, does it just leave the whole thing lifeless, like you're saying? I think it does.
It's actually on a more broader case. It's the first time ever that the Premier League title, La Liga title, Bundesliga title, Serie A title, and Liga 1 title have all been retained in the same season, and it just feels like it's going to happen again next year and the year after and the year after.
There's nothing we were looking we were making arguments that maybe someone could compete with Juventus under a new manager next year. Probably not. Bayern Munich don't look like there's any challengers that could really overturn this Bayern Munich dominant side. Spain, it's going to be Barcelona next season. I don't think Real Madrid have enough time to recover.
Even then, like, if it isn't Barcelona, it's Real Madrid.
Yeah, like this duopoly. It's like Scotland. Like Celtic will probably win a 9th league title next year. Maybe Juventus or maybe Rangers will challenge them. Probably not. Like it's a problem throughout Europe. There's always been dominant sides in countries in Europe. Like we're talking Vincent Company going to Anderlecht. Like you can name almost. You could probably do it yourself, like as a quiz thing. Name out the dominant sides in every European country, and you probably get most places. It's like, so it is a historic issue, but the way Man City are doing it, it feels like that dominance will never end, and it in a way that you say people who aren't fans of big clubs, so like people who aren't fans of Bayern Munich, who aren't fans of Barcelona, Real Madrid, who aren't fans of Juventus or the Milan sides, they're like, well, this is exactly the same way as it's always been in our country. We have Juventus winning 35 league titles, the Milan sides winning 36 between them. Like that's most of the last century have been won by either one of those three sides. Like what about us? What about the Atalanta fans? What about the Chievo fans? What about them? Like they've been living in this reality for a long time. And to them, I say, well, it is bad, but at the very least, like when you get beaten by Juventus or Juventus by your best player, and it hurts in the short term, at least you have the thought that someday the cycle will break and Juventus won't be the dominant side, like when they were relegated, like when they couldn't win the league for nearly 10 years, or not, well, officially win the league for 10 years with everything being taken away, like when Barcelona suffered in the mid-2000s. Like these things can happen. Teams run in cycles and they're not always unbeatable.
Just look at Man United now. They're in a down period.
Liverpool for years after the whole boot room stuff.
I mean, they're still waiting for a league title.
Yeah, but with Man City, the only thing you can hope for is that they misstep for one season, like Pellegrini did for one season between league titles, like Pep did when he was getting his feet under the table. Like that's the only hope you have. And as the likes of like they got their stuff in order, Man City, like they have a plan. They're doing it really cleverly, but like that's the worry, is that it'll never end now, because if they do this right and they get the legacy of Pep Guardiola right and they appoint the next manager, whoever it may be, and have the right playing staff in place, have the right support staff in place, because you saw they have hundreds of support staff at that club. They know what they're doing. They're not underdoing this at any means. There's no stone unturned at that club for looking for that competitive advantage, looking for that edge to keep them on top, and that's great for Man City fans for the moment. Wait till it gets boring. It's bad. It's terrible for everybody else, because even when Liverpool can have, and like really, they could have a massively impressive, exceptional season where they win most games. They get rid of all the problems they had last season, which was mostly defensively caused. They continue their goal scoring. They get 97 points, and it's like no one really thinks they could have won the league even on the last day of the season at 97 points.
Like that's what I was wondering about. Like when you get into a situation with Bayern Munich, say this year, where they have a bad season, Dortmund are leading, like. Not just let them off for the year, like just let them have it, really, just so that when you win the title back, it feels better than, oh great, I won it again for the 9th year in a row or whatever. Like it's just like at what point did the big clubs just get bored? Like they must do.
It happens in other sports, but every one of those sports always, like baseball, when the Yankees won 5 in a row at the turn of the century, and everyone's like, oh, this is terrible, or but eventually the cycle ends and other teams come through, and like the Red Sox came back and stuff like that happened, or NBA dynasties happen, and you're like, no one's ever going to beat, at the moment, no one's ever going to beat the Golden State Warriors. Everyone thinks they're going to just roll on through. Even if they lose an NBA playoffs, they'll be back next year and they'll do it again, like they have with the Heat and everything, and they're going for their dynasty now. And everyone's like, yeah, but it'll end and we'll come back, and like the Bulls or like the Lakers, it'll all come back around. But if Man City does right, it will never end. It will just keep going in perpetuity. And then you will have effectively, which we're kind of already getting in Europe, as we've discussed in the past, we have these little offshoots like Ajax or Spurs this season of teams just like randomly getting far in a tournament. But generally speaking, who's won? It's like the FA Cup. How many teams have won the FA Cup in the last 20 years?
Not many.
Yeah, you're not like
a handful of teams.
Yeah, it's like outside. I think 2008 was the first time in 20 years that a team that hadn't been like in the title race / been up, one of the massive clubs, the top 4,
a Champions
top
League
6.
club.
Exactly. The Portsmouth was the first time that happened. Then Wigan won it, and then Portsmouth and Wigan in the last 20 years to Everton.
And like Wigan was a huge upset at the time. Portsmouth less so because they were playing Cardiff.
But even
in the
them
final.
being in the final was a huge thing. And but that's going to be the same way in the Champions League soon. Real Madrid have won. Real Madrid and Barcelona. I know an English club will win it this year. But Real Madrid and Barcelona have won the last 5 European Cups.
Yeah, it's the first time a Spanish club's not been in the final since 2013.
Like that's crazy, but that's the way the club football is going. That it's going to be towards these super clubs, and it's been shifting that way for a while. But with Man City and everything, it kind of ruins the domestic game to an extent. Like I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I'm just kind of jumping to conclusions. But it's just the last week and the way things have turned around on Pep, and the way things have started to like. Actually, what's Man City doing? What are they doing? And this is really like no one's enjoyed. Like we've a lot of think pieces, and we've been part of it as well. It's like this isn't the best Premier League side ever, and last season wasn't the best Premier League side ever. But they got 100 points and 98 points respectively. And so, what is the best team ever? Is there going to ever be a best team ever? Because this monolith exists. That's Man City. That I know it's early days, and we're jumping to conclusions. They've only won 2 leagues in a row. So it's not like they're Man United winning 3 in a row, going for 4 in a row, which, we could have said that back then, but I don't think we did. I don't think we thought this would last forever.
Yeah, but like
even under Ferguson, even with Ronaldo, even with Rooney.
But at that point you knew, well, Ferguson's got to go at some point. Ronaldo's going at some point soon, so it's going to die off. And it did.
But with this Man City side, you're like, okay, Aguero can go, and they'll buy somebody else for 60, 80 million. Pep will go, but they'll probably have someone else lined up.
Arteta is lined up apparently already.
Yeah. Or the next big thing in management after that as well could be there at that point. Like players like Vincent Kompany, who is, had, like we say, despite injuries, but he stayed fit for most of the season, played a lot of the season, scored an amazing goal to win the league effectively against Leicester. Just leaves the club, and no one, he's left the club. But the club captain has left, who's been inspiration, who scored the winning goal in the league decider effectively, and no one really cares that he's left the club. Like, it's not been a big, oh my god, how will they ever recover from this? They're just, okay, they'll sign somebody. The same thing will happen when Fernandinho leaves, when David Silva eventually leaves, when Kevin De Bruyne eventually leaves, when Aguero eventually leaves. Like, all of this will always happen, and there'll be no big fanfare around it. It's kind of sad in some way, because you kind of lose that aspect of importance of teams. It just becomes a conveyor belt of interchanging parts. You may as well be, like, building a computer, and like, pull out that processor, put in that memory. Like,
they have felt robotic most of the season. It's felt like watching an AI team play.
And that is the end. That is the end game of Pep Guardiola, is to have robots playing for him and everything to be perfect and symmetrical and pass, beat everyone out. It isn't an organic way of playing football. Although his best sides have always done their best when someone does something organic, the way Lionel Messi would, the way Robbery would have.
The way Vincent Kompany did a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Someone like passed the ball and like, no, he took a shot. And that's, the more this goes, the longer it goes on, the closer it gets to being that complete robotic, systematic way of playing football. Like, I don't think, even a few years ago, do you remember a few years ago, there was loads of matches finishing 5-4, 3-2, 6-4.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, yeah.
And how many memorable matches were there this season in the Premier League, for instance? Like, Champions League will take aside.
The North London Derby at the Emirates was quite good, the 4-2.
Yeah.
That was about it.
And that was there earlier in the season. We're like, this will be the start of a few good matches. And then nothing. Like, I can't think of many teams involved in many exciting matches. Like, the Liverpool-Man City those matches had a bit to them because of... They
were tense, but they weren't exciting.
No, they were like... You're kind of like, whoa.
The
Champions League quarter-final, which happened to be between two English clubs in Man City and Tottenham, but it was entirely out of Pep's control. That's why it was exciting. Mistakes kept flying at both ends, so goals kept going in.
That was pretty fun.
It was loads of fun. But like that's what was entertaining about it. But Pep won't allow that going forward. And it's not a slight on Pep Guardiola. He's doing his job. His job is to win football matches.
Like, it was after the 5th goal, I think, yesterday, where the camera cut to Vincent Kompany talking to Troy Deeney.
Troy Deeney, and he making the men face of him just going, whoa.
Yeah, sorry, but he was almost apologetic, which is pathetic in its own right.
It's like but that's the new
normal. It's humiliating for Troy Deeney, and then it's pathetic for Vincent Kompany.
But like the Watford players and Watford fans, really, after a certain point, like when we said, Pep even said it in the post-match press conference, when it got to 3-0, the match was over.
I
And it's
turned it off at 2-0.
That was 60 minutes gone or something. Like you're like, or even that, was it even that? 55 minutes maybe. And you're like, wow, this is disheartening. There's still another half an hour. I remember the commentary was a Martin Tyler. I was listening to on commentary going, there's still a half an hour left.
Yeah, I felt bad for the Watford players. Like even when
and
it
they were
was
just
2-0.
accepting of it. The fans were accepting of it, and they were like, wow, this is it. But that's what Liverpool, maybe not Liverpool this season, but in past seasons they've had to face Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham when they've played this Man City side, and they were like, wow, this is over. Like there's nothing coming back from this, and it's kind of ruins the excitement of it. And it's entirely what Pep's meant to do. It's like he plays very expansive attacking football, but it's reached the point where it's almost gone full circle, and it's completely nullifying defensive football.
But it's also the point with Pep Guardiola where it's like he obviously did an immense job at Barcelona, that club. That team was one of the all-time great football teams, and you have to respect that. But then, like, he went to Bayern Munich, who had just won the treble, and it was like you picked a really easy decision there. And then you've gone to Man City, who have an unlimited amount of money for you to spend, and you've won with that money, and it just looks unimpressive.
Yeah, but I think that's in doubt. Like we were talking about self-doubt earlier. Like I think that probably breeds a bit of self-doubt in him. But like people say, oh, can he do it with Stoke or can he do it?
That's what I mean.
Crystal Palace, like if he was to drop down to Crystal Palace, but no, he won't because that's not his skill set. His skill set is to do this with
like he's earned the right to manage the clubs like Bayern Munich, and
he can do it with when
by
he given
doing
the resources.
so well. Yeah. But like I know I want him to drop down to Stoke or whatever, unless he actually wants to do that, which I would watch.
Yeah,
but
well, he will eventually, I'd imagine. Maybe not Stoke.
No, he'd probably do it in Spain or in Argentina, or maybe.
Yeah, something weird like that.
But like, I'd like to see him go to a Roma or something instead of a Juventus.
Well, that's kind of why he went to Man City. Like, if you remember, this is the thing. Like, Man City do have endless amounts of funds, but
they still were on the back of 2 league titles.
Yeah, they had 2 league titles in like 4 years or whatever it was.
They were still a Champions League team.
Yeah, but he came in and they were probably at the same level as Manchester United when Mourinho took over.
Like it almost feels like he should do a Maradona and go to Napoli or something.
Yeah, well, that's but like, it's hard to satisfy people when you're like that. And I understand.
Do something historic.
Yeah, but like, do you say that Arrigo Sacchi didn't achieve much because he won his back-to-back Champions Leagues with or European Cups with Milan side that had Ruud Gullit and Marco van Basten, Frank Rijkaard, Carlo Ancelotti, etc. in them. And I was like, like Pep took over Barcelona, like they had the best player in the world, but they took over Barcelona when they had an appalling season.
You know, like the work he did with Barcelona was fantastic.
He got rid of all the bad players immediately.
There's no taking away from what he's done at Barcelona. It just feels like since then he's just done the easy way out.
Yeah, but I think he will eventually take up international management, whether it's Spain or some other country, and I think he won't do very well. I think it'll be too much pressure for him.
He won't have the time as well with the players.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it'll all fall apart. Like he'll do really well in qualifiers and it'll be into like the second round of a World Cup and he'll just get knocked out.
Yeah, including getting knocked on the groups and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I can see that happening, but before he does that, I want to see him go to just a B tier team.
I think I'd like to see it as well, but at the same time, it's probably not going to work. It's probably just going to be like Louis van Gaal at Manchester United, that you see a team be nullified by its own style.
But if he picks, like Louis van Gaal went into that Manchester United team, and that Manchester United didn't suit what Van Gaal wanted to do. Like, pick a team that will suit you, but doesn't have the funds to
But you just want him to like. It's like fantasy football or football manager. You want this guy to show more, but like this is what he showed.
But that's what I mean. Like Napoli's kind of the perfect team for him now. Like if he they have that historic thing where they haven't won the title without Maradona, so there is history there for him to be a part of. They have a great team there. They don't have unlimited money. They will need to sell to buy. But they still are used to a style of football that he's similar to. Like he praised Sarri quite a lot when they met in the Champions League a couple of years ago. So like
Napoli would suit him, but I don't see him going there. I don't see Napoli just having the draw to him because he is a guy who wants to achieve things. Like maybe if he wins the Champions League with Man City, he will do that step down and look to try and build something with another club. Or maybe he'll do what Alex Ferguson told him to do 10 years ago at Barcelona when he was like, I might leave now because I've done what I can do with this team. And Ferguson said, what are you doing? That's the job. The job is to do it again. The job is to create something new. The job isn't to just, I give up and then go somewhere else. The job is to sustain. It's to do what Jacques Steen did, to do what Alex Ferguson did, to do what Arsene Wenger did, to do what, like, name other managers who are really long-standing, to do what those managers did and last and sustain and build something new.
Alan Kirbishley
at Charlton, yes. Well, in fairness, he did well. Like, we don't have that in the modern game anymore, and I think that's something that is true. I think it is harder in this day and age. It's something that Zinedine Zidane is trying to do now at Real Madrid, and it almost like he already is a better manager in terms of his like kind of achievements, if you want to call them that.
Three Champions League trophies is more than Pep,
and be assistant manager for a fourth, and winning a league title, and winning. These are all huge like with the team, and when he leaves, it falls apart. And you can say like that hasn't happened at any of the other teams Pep has left. So maybe Pep wasn't tying things together as well as we might think. He certainly endeared a style to players, but sometimes when he left, they became less inhibited and did well anyway. Like at Bayern,
like at Barcelona, they won a treble a few years after.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe, but that's also worrying because when he leaves Man City, maybe the same thing will happen again, and then we'll be locked in this. Like, it's very early days to be calling it, and it's just something that's been going around in my head for the last while.
It does remind me as well of the doom mongering that was there when Mourinho won the second league title with Chelsea, and they were completely dominant that season. It just felt like this is how it is.
Yeah, this is the new normal.
But then Manchester United stepped up. They gave them a challenge. Maybe Liverpool will step up this time.
But they did step up. That's the thing. You're not. How can you beat?
Maybe Chelsea will step up this time, and we'll get that.
It goes back to that old Clough quote with John Revie when he was like, "How can you do better? We only lost 4 matches last season," and he said, "We can only lose 3." But like in this regard, how can you do better? Like you could say,
not lose any.
Like Liverpool could not lose any matches next season. That still mightn't be enough. Like we've had teams, fantastic teams. Like you talk about the Man United 94 side, talk about the treble-winning side of Manchester United, the Invincibles, the Chelsea sides under Mourinho the first time round. All of those teams getting into 90-point range, dominating the league really, and playing much better football than this Man City side in terms of the excitement, in terms of the creativity, in terms of the ingenuity. Like how much of that did we really see? We saw the same goal probably 70 times this season from Man City. Just pass it to the far post and tap it in by various different players, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a systematic way of winning, of scoring a goal, but it feels almost it's like the new set piece. Like played the long ball played the free kick to the far post and headed back cross goal, and it goes in, and it's almost like that now, except crossfield pass, back another pass, stretch the play, player gets free in the box, square it to them, and they scored maybe 3 goals like that against Watford.
But the thing as well is, like with all of those teams, they were all willing to give up a League Cup and an FA Cup there so that they could, focus on the league and stuff like that. Whereas Man City, both have been able to buy the squad depth so that they don't have to give up those things, and 2 have also just fortunately this season not played any really difficult teams, and gotten rub of the green and referee decisions as well.
Yeah, but
it has been a fortunate season. Yeah,
and you also get the negative side of that. Then you also get the feeling that this isn't a team that like has had to face adversity. You don't get that like. Even if you look down at Spurs and Liverpool to a lesser extent, but certainly at Spurs, like what got to them getting to the Champions League, what it meant to those players on that journey, what it meant to Pochettino. I don't think that would ever happen with this group of players in Man City. If they got to a Champions League final, that would mean that much.
It would just be another day's work.
Yeah, it's just this is what we expect. Like Kevin De Bruyne, you're a crappy manager. Joking as he was, but and like Leroy Sané being. Like have a big sulk on the sideline, like whatever's gone on with that relationship, or Raheem Sterling talking about how I'll never listen to anybody, and that's fine. And like okay, there's a lot of attitude there, and you're like okay, whatever is up, you don't feel like they're a very united bunch. That if some and the same to what happened under Pellegrini and to a lesser extent under Mancini, that they kind of fell apart because they didn't believe in the project, they didn't believe in what was happening. They are just employees to this. They were just a cog in the machine. They're not, part of the club, and maybe like Vincent Kompany felt that they were, and maybe there's other players in that squad that feel that they are part of the club, part of the fabric, part of the community. But I don't see it. I think, and that in some ways it makes you feel less empathy with the team, and you can't really feel as happy because as a neutral, I didn't really care who won the league this year, but they won it, and I was okay with it. But now I'm like, oh, maybe them not winning the league would have been better for the whole structure of the league. It's like when in Paris at the moment when the whatever the investment group that owns them threatens to like, oh, maybe we won't be as interested in supporting Paris anymore, and everyone's like, that'd be great. I
welcome that with open arms.
Yeah, and even some Paris fans going like, yeah, well, what is the point in winning when you don't have to beat anyone anymore? Like that is what it is. Like.
It's like in any kind of scripted drama, like you need an antagonist and a protagonist, and so far we've just got an antagonist.
Yeah, and you don't have like it just gets boring, sterile, stale, like without any hope of change.
I do want to end this on a positive because it's been
Yeah,
quite
we could have
depressing.
been completely wrong. It's just the week it's felt like.
It has felt like a very turbulent week just for the long future of football
Yeah,
ahead.
it's not a good way to end the season.
And,
really.
and it hasn't helped as well with the whole Champions League stuff. But having said that, the way like kind of you talk about that Man City team and the way that like some other teams and like other dominant teams in the past have as well, like I could just see this City team completely collapsing at some point. Not necessarily next season, but at some point I could just see this all like a bubble just bursting.
But I can't as long as the framework that's been put in place, which is a fantastic framework, Ferran Soriano, the Mubarak owner, as long as they stay and stay committed to it and continue everything, I don't see it ever happening.
When I say collapse, it would just be a one season collapse.
That's what I don't even see, because I think when it happened previously when Man City, I don't know, I could have when Man City was appointed, I could have seen that coming years, and I did see it coming years in advance. This is going to be a railroad training bridge.
And it did with Pellegrini as well.
And it did with Pellegrini, but it wasn't as bad that time compared to Man City.
They still got fourth,
and they recovered. And I think they've learned from those two before, and they learned from Mark Hughes before that. Each time they got better, and now they've got Pep, and they've secured Pep for longer than he's been at any club, most likely, by the time he finishes his contract. And they're like, wow, well, and they've got a legacy in place. They have a strategy in place to take over after that. And they keep buying well, they keep employing well across the board at the club in terms of player recruitment or agent relations or player relations. They make Manchester to be much problem historically with signing players in Northern England is that there was in Northern England one not the weather wasn't as good as it was say in Central Europe or Spain or Italy, and secondly that you weren't in London if you were in England, and I haven't heard that being an issue for anyone since what's the name of that Spanish player they signed, Nolito?
Yeah, it was an issue for Nolito,
Yeah,
but he still had a good season that season.
Yeah, he did, but he left then, but nobody since I've heard that being a problem.
Yeah,
and
that's
not like whether they're keeping that quiet. If they're keeping that quiet, it's good PR that they've turned that around, and any player in the world can be linked with Man City now, and they're not necessarily going to be against going to them for financial reasons, but also for footballing reasons, and that's the killer part is that I don't see this ending. If what I think is happening is actually happening, I don't see this ending anytime soon. And I think even if they do have a blip, they can recover from it. And I don't think it's going to necessarily affect. Next season, they could go hell for leather for the Champions League and only focus on the Champions League, and that could result in them not getting 3 in a row in league titles. But I think that would mean they'd win the Champions League, and I think that would be the same trade-off. And we'd be saying this about the Champions League next year about. Wow, because think about Man City didn't really show a great deal in the Champions League this season.
Yeah, they were poor in the group stage where they lost a couple of games. They drew matches they should have won, and then they got an easy draw against Schalke, which they almost blew in the first leg.
Yeah, and then they didn't show up against Spurs in the quarterfinal. They were Spurs. They beat them multiple times in the league, easy,
including right after the Champions League quarterfinal.
It's as if they're overthinking it, or as Ferguson said, you have to play in Europe a different way, and maybe that's. That's the thing that they're getting to terms with now. That's the Pellegrini bit they're overcoming, or the Mancini bit they're overcoming. That is the Champions League, and maybe they'll have to make sacrifices for that. But I think they could turn the Champions League into the same type of sterile environment the Premier League has felt the last couple of seasons. That no disservice, I feel I probably am doing a disservice to them, and the style of football they play at times, and the way, the quality of Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne at times in the last 2 years, or Aguero as well. But it doesn't feel good. You don't feel wow, this is exciting as you did when, even if you look back now, I'm looking back on YouTube, you can get great videos of goals of the month from the 2000s and 90s or anything like that, and you see wow, this is really good, fun, competitive league. I know football's evolved in those times, but you're you don't feel that about this league at the moment, and you kind of it's throughout Europe. That's why this season we were so excited about Ajax and the new way of football they're playing, and that team has just been broken up now. And it's going to be part of all these different super clubs, and probably be ironed out of them, be worked out of them. The way Dennis Bergkamp used to say that they coach players too much now that they don't think for themselves at other clubs, and at Ajax they try not to do that, and that's probably why we got this kind of genius side this year. But all that will be lost probably.
Well, fortunately for us, they will ruin the Champions League before Man City have the chance to do it. at UEFA or whoever is running that show. Agnelli at Juventus.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
So leaving the show now on a real positive note.
Women's football is good, apparently.
We should all just jump aboard that. I suppose.
That's what I've been hearing all year. It just should migrate full time.
Yeah, World Cup's coming up. No time like the present.
Yeah, we should do that.
But the Champions League final we will preview next week, and the Europa League final as well. They're both next week, aren't they? Apparently Arsenal played a friendly behind closed doors this week or something random. Danny Welbeck scored a hat-trick. So
Danny Welbeck's back.
They're getting prepared.
So you have the last game?
Liverpool are off to Marbella for a summer training camp again.
Okay, well, it's in Madrid. So
they basically have a pre-season before the Champions League final. So
yeah,
might as well.
It's just as long as a pre-season because it was 3 weeks.
Yeah, Premier League ended up being the first league to wrap up, and then it ended up with 2 English teams in the Champions League final, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, but in some ways it'll be great for the final because you have 2 fresh sides, or
hopefully
both finals you have 4 fresh sides, except for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's now out for probably a year at least.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it. Good luck to Ruben Loftus-Cheek in his recovery.
Poor Ruben Loftus-Cheek.
And I think we'll leave it there for this week. Thank you for being here, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll be back in next week. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget you can tell family and friends about the show. Spread the word of the Total Football Takeover. You can also follow us on social media at the TF Pod on Twitter and Total Football Pod on Instagram. We can also be found on podcast services including Spotify by searching Total Football Podcast. The more the merrier. That's what we always say.